Michigan is one practice down into spring ball, 14 more to go, if my math is correct. And we are starting to get a little bit of a glimpse of what we're starting to, I don't know what to say about it. You're starting to get a glimpse of what things are. Weirdly, through today, I don't know that we got one single Bryce Underwood question, which I think is fine, but some surprising names are emerging. Let's talk about it here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Holt, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And for the second time this week, I was down in Ann Arbor to discuss spring ball. This time we got 3 players, and we got a little bit of some intel in terms of what happened in the first practice, as well as just expectations for the season. And there's just a lot of really good stuff and encouraging stuff. Now, again, I want to give you the typical disclaimer that comes out of spring ball. Anything said in spring ball, like what happens in spring ball stays in spring ball, right? Like there's just some, like you can't overreact to anything, but it means good things in as much as good things have happened. Doesn't mean anything for August 30th or September 6th or 7th, whatever day that is. I think the 6th at Oklahoma or anything beyond that. Like I said, there was really no Bryce Underwood talk. I wasn't there for all of it, but well, I shouldn't say all of it, but it was a scrum situation. So there were 3 players that were given to us: TJ Guy, Ernest Hausman, Max Bredesen. And you get one, and then another one comes out at the same time, and then another one comes out at the same time, right? So you're not with everybody all the time. But I didn't see anything that indicated that Bryce Underwood was a topic. Obviously, only one offensive player, kind of tracks. I think the most surprising thing, though, was an offensive thing, and it came from a defensive player. I had asked TJ Guy, who are the young people that have stood out to you in one practice? I fully expected TJ to respond to that with discussing a second-year defensive lineman, right? Like that's his unit. I expected him to say, when I asked more specifically, what about those second-year defensive linemen? Then I got a little bit more of an answer. But when I asked him, I said, who stood out in practice 1? He hesitated not even for a second and said Jamar Browder. Now remember, Jamar Browder is a true freshman, early enrollee, 6'5", from Santa Lucis community in Florida, South Florida. He was an NC State commit, and he was highly prioritized by Sharon Moore. I had some concerns about him based off of some conversations that I had that by the time he had made it to campus were completely gone. And hear that he went out and made what it sounds like a highlight reel catch that surprised everyone, including the seniors, including TJ Guy and Max Bredesen. That's like, okay, now we're working with something, right? Because Michigan needs their 6'5" wide receivers to make an impact. Now they got 2 of them right now, Donovan McCulley and Browder. But to be able to have a freshman come onto the scene and suddenly make like a highlight reel play, I understand it's one practice, and yeah, he got to practice with the team a little bit with the bowl prep and all of that. But that is extremely encouraging news, because suddenly you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, well, there might be a situation where you've got a guy who can who can show out in year 1. I know we all look at Andrew Marsh as likely being that player, but at the same time, if they can get multiple guys, because they need it at wide receiver, that's the big thing. Wide receiver is our biggest question mark. And I still fully expect them to look in the spring portal to see, well, hey, who's gonna be able to come in and help us out. So to be able to get that type, again, we don't want to overreact, but it's encouraging news that the freshman came out and made a play that made everyone go, wait a second, are you kidding me? Now, I remember that being the case in going into 2017 with Donovan and Tariq. Not Nico. It was Donovan and Tariq that were doing that. Tariq really kind of at least showed you early on that he had that in his wheelhouse. Donovan never quite got to be what we expected him to be. But I mean, that's still an encouraging thing. Now we want to know more about the quarterbacks, and we want to know more about that type of stuff, and that stuff will come. I think it's more important to hear kind of more mid spring ball about what's going on, and we'll hear about it quite a bit, I'm sure, between now and then. But between now and the spring game, but just to at least get a little bit of a glimpse in here. Okay, this freshman is taking a step forward. That is absolutely encouraging news, and you want to be here for it. Now, on top of that, asked about those second-year linemen, and basically said, well, Lou, as in Lugard Edakpai, rather, and Devin Baxter have done really good. But Dom Nichols, we look at him, TJ Guy says, we look at him more than just being a second-year guy. Like, we count on him. We expect him to be a massive part of what we're trying to do. So that's extremely encouraging as well. I asked Max Bredesen about Eli Owens, and he said, yeah, he's been like a sponge. He's just wanted to, soak everything up. So that's good. But those are the types of things that you want to hear. And on top of it, you had Ernest Hausman asked, like, who's really stepping up. He first mentioned Cole Sullivan, first name out of his mouth. That's really good to hear. But also mentioned the two freshmen, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who I think will play a role this year, and Chase Taylor, who I think is going to be a little bit more of a project, but he still mentioned him as being like they've really come on strong right away. So again, these guys are only in shells, although it's one of those things that they had said. I think it was TJ Guy that said, like, man, like, we felt so, like, it felt wrong to be in shells. We wanted to be in pads. We wanted to be out there doing the most. Really encouraging that that's even just where this team is. And we're going to talk more here in a moment about the trajectory of the team. And I think that you could kind of see it when you're talking about the defense, just coming off of their last game against Alabama, how that prepares them for the upcoming season. And I'm really excited about what they've got as far as that's concerned. So we'll talk more about that, some of the transfers, what we've seen there, and more. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale the business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family needs. With Fabric, you can apply for a term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. If you're a parent, you can make sure that your family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives you that peace of mind. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. I feel like this is one of the shows, if you're watching on YouTube, where we're going to dive, the camera's going to die beforehand. I don't understand if it's just I need a new battery. I've got 2 batteries that I cycle through. And every time it's like, oh, it's a little more than half full. And then before you know it, it's down to 1. So we're going to try to get it all under the radar, under the whistle, rather. All right. So I asked TJ Guy about a couple different things that I thought was interesting. I felt like he was the star of the show. I mean, we get him enough. But I think that some of the interesting things he said was just how that Alabama game propels them into this next year. Because keep in mind, Michigan, not really accustomed, especially in a rebuilding year, to winning its last 2 games. I think that's an interesting change. Now, the last several years, they've won their second to last game and then lose the bowl game. And the case for most of these are college football playoff games, right? But usually, especially in going from 2012 forward, like, 2012, lose Ohio State, lose the bowl game. 2013, lose Ohio State, lose the bowl game. 2014, lose Ohio State, lose the bowl game. 2015, lose Ohio State, win the bowl game. But then, you didn't get the bowl game wins. You had both of those losses. And this year, coming off of an 8-5 record, win both of those games. Now, Ernest Hausman says, regardless, I don't care that we won those last two games. Unacceptable. 8-5 is unacceptable at Michigan, and we're not going to allow that to happen. But that said, when you look at what the defense was able to do against a very good Alabama front, and you've got these backups, like TJ Guy looks at it and says that this shows you how seriously we take the defense. This is how serious we are. It does not matter if you were not considered a starter throughout the year. Like, right, TJ Guy was not, he started a couple games, but he wasn't considered a starter throughout the year. And yet, it's one of those things, he looks at it and says, okay, wasn't that, but got the opportunities when I got them against Alabama, and we were able to make good on that. I think also you look at a couple different things, like he said, you look at how he and Derek Moore played together in that game. And he's like, the great thing is he said, I am the speed finesse guy. Derek's a little bit of a different player. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens come the season, because we're going to flush guys to each other. Who's going to end up being the one who has more sacks? He's like, really hard to tell, because we're going to flush guys to each other because we have different skill sets coming at different angles at the quarterback. So I think that's a really exciting proponent to look at and to have when you've got a defense that is that. On top of it, you add in Trey Williams and Damon Payne, who TJ Guy says look like they look the part. They look like what you hope. They look exactly what you would think, being fifth-year defensive tackles like that. And he even said, well, I went as far as watching the tape, and they've got it. Now, they might not have been these, ballyhooed guys once they actually were in college, right? Trey Williams had all of the potential in the world and just kind of couldn't stay healthy. And then Damon Payne never quite lived up to his 5-star billing coming out of Belleville. But TJ Guy's like, yeah, no, and he's like, the thing is that they're tanks. You look at them in winter conditioning, and they are like, they're going in and they're doing their work. And it sounds like everyone's abiding to the culture. And I think that's the important thing that I was kind of alluding to in the end of the first segment, is the culture still seems strong. And while it still seems strong last year, was kind of a little bit more of like, we need to be able to prove that we can still be national champions. And I think even though, it was like, okay, they could make the playoff. I remember by like in like week 3 or week 4 talking to a staffer, and he said, I think these guys are going to will themselves to the playoffs and all of this. And it just didn't work out that way. I think there was too much of they were just a little bit too in over their head. And just given all of the losses, a lot of guys starting for the first time, first year head coach, all of those things. And I think that when you look at what they brought to the bringing to the table this year, I think the expectations are more so like, we can do what we did to finish the year, right? To be able to beat the eventual national champion the way that Michigan did. I think that's that's something that you can take with you and say, like, okay, especially defensively, because most of those guys are going to be playing. Right. The only losses that they had from the defense that played in that game were Amir Hall and Quentin Johnson, if memory serves, because Makari Page didn't play. None of the 3 draftable defensive linemen did. So mostly you've got a vision of what you're about to get, plus transfers, plus potential freshmen. I think it's just a really good situation for the Wolverines as far as that's concerned. So it's going to be really exciting to see what they're able to do as far as being able to kind of get trying to prove, essentially, to just by virtue of having the culture that they had built starting back to 2021. And I think that's where, like, there's also some importance, like TJ Guy's reference to the fact that he still watches Aiden Hutchinson's tape from when he was at Michigan, and like getting to witness him, work out and play and all of that kind of stuff when I was here, right? Because keep in mind, TJ Guy was a freshman, Aiden's final year. I think that type of thing also bodes well, because now you do have that situation where the seniors are like, we've been a part of a team that won a national championship. We have been a part of teams that turn things around. We know what it takes. Everybody come with me. I think that is a really important distinction to have. So it'll be interesting to see where they go for the, in spring ball. Again, it's what happens in spring stays in spring to some degree. But nonetheless, I just feel after the first practice, like everyone's kind of saying the right things about themselves, each other, all of that stuff. So kudos to them. We'll see how it perpetuates. I understand a lot of people are going to say, what do you expect them to say? Well, I've been around teams that are good and I've been around teams that are bad. And I can tell you that they sound more like one of the teams that are good, that know that they can be good, that know what they're capable of. But we'll see as it progresses, right? Because there's a lot of time between now and August to get everything together. All right, we're going to continue on, and we're going to do so here in just a moment. But before you do you ever check on your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I mean, I do the same thing pretty much every day. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing money with your partners smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, let's finish out here. Change the battery so we don't have to worry about the catastrophe hitting. Ultra realistically, what can we expect from spring? Because we get that question in the mailbag. We get it probably every other week. Answered it yesterday. And even though I kind of said not much, I do think that there is something. And when I said, like, you want to hear some of those names and you want to hear some consistency, those names mentioned consistently, I will say that to some degree that doesn't matter, right? Because last year was Etta, and he was okay last year. Wasn't certainly as advertised coming out of spring ball. The year before was Amarian Walker. All this talk of he's a unicorn, you saw it in the spring game. It was a disaster. But I think more than that, what you want to hear coming out of spring, first, you do want those names to be mentioned consistently, regardless if they end up being factors in the season. I think that is true. Like, I want to hear 5 practices from now, like, Jamar Browder has established himself as a guy, right? You did it once, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like, these guys understand you have to bring it every day. And if you bring it every day and improve and all of that, then you're going to have a shot. So you want to be able to hear not just that a guy did it on day 1. You want to hear that a guy did it on day 5. You want to hear that a guy did it on day 20. You want to hear it, coming out of the spring game. You want to be able to talk about them and be like, okay, kind of like, I mean, again, this is proof that spring doesn't always tell you the whole story. Kind of like in 2019 at the open practice, the 2 names we heard the most really were Mikey Sainris still at wide receiver and Eric All at tight end. During the season, pretty much non-existent. So with that in mind, what do I kind of really end up wanting to see? Once we get done with spring ball, once we're at the actual spring game and we're talking about the spring game, what is it that I want to come back and say, okay, that was encouraging. I want to hear that the guys that were mentioned in previous years are the ones who took that step forward. I want to hear that Etta took a massive step forward, and I want to see, like, okay, yeah, he was blowing things up when he was in the game. I want to see, okay, it's a little different because Amarian Walker was considered a unicorn because he was playing defensive back, but that just didn't work. But I want to see him become active I want to see him be active when it comes to being a wide receiver. Now, he's no longer wearing number 1, according to the new spring roster. Doesn't have a number associated with him, which is kind of curious. But I think that it will be interesting to see, like, if he can, in his senior year, finally take a step forward, right? Because he's the only one left, right? Because it was 3 people, three receivers in his class: Tyler Morris, Amarian Walker, and who else? Can't remember. So anyway, and with that in mind, like, I want to hear, like, some of the guys that were, getting talk about in bowl prep. Can Fred Moore take a step forward? Obviously, at positions of need, you need a little bit more, but you would also love to see that, Etta. That's not a position of need necessarily. We know what that is. And we're hearing one name in particular quite a bit in addition to Rayshon Benny, and it's Ikawana. I think that maybe he could end up being the starter. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've got Trey Williams kind of slotted in there at the moment, just because I think that he's got the most upside out of everybody. But I mean, could you end up seeing Etta come in and do what he was talked about being able to do last year? I think that would be a huge thing. So that's kind of more of what I want to kind of feel coming out of spring ball are some of these names that have been ballyhooed, whether it was during the season through like who's been shining in practice, bowl prep, who's been shining in bowl prep, or, guys that were past mentioned in previous spring balls, because that's kind of their moment, right? Because they've been through it before. You get better at football by playing football. So I think that if you find yourself in a scenario where you are able to actually like be consistent, because I think that's probably what's lacking, right? Guys that maybe they show it in spring ball, then comes the season and they're kind of worn out or burnt out, or they just don't have that extra gear. Maybe it's they're still showing it in practice, but they're not showing it in games. Well, you want to still have them show it in practice, because the chances are you're going to show it in games. It's not, this is the thing that people often kind of miss, right? Because you always hear of like, well, why not give this guy a shot? And it's like, well, because if it's not showing up in practice, the chance of it showing up in a game is unlikely. It's more than unlikely, right? Like you have to be able to be good at doing, at Cornelius Johnson's thing that he used to always love to say, take State Street to Main Street. You have to be able to do that. And they're not going to really trust to put a guy in that's like, well, he hasn't really shown anything in practice, but let's put him in anyway because he was a 4-star. So I think that there's a lot that you can get out of spring ball in terms of like, okay, can some of these, I mean, heck, even like a guy like Payton O'Leary showing out in spring ball now that he's not now that he's not a walk-on any longer, he's been a starter. To have a guy like him showing out, it'd be like, okay, look, he can do it, especially because that connects to the quarterback, because maybe better quarterback play plus Payton O'Leary ends up meaning something. And talking to some people who have been around the program in the last few years, they'll actually tell you Payton O'Leary is actually a pretty good wide receiver. So to see some of those guys, some of the names that we've heard, to take Payton O'Leary from getting the Jim Harbaugh, he's like our Cooper Kupp type of thing, and actually seeing it, regardless of we've seen him do it in spring games and not necessarily in actual games, that's still encouraging because it tells you, okay, there's a chance, especially against the defensive players. And I think too, the other part of this is I think the defense is deep enough where even with the draft, I think that it's going to, whatever the offense does that's positive is probably going to mean something good for the sake of, I just think that this is a defensive too deep that is absolutely phenomenal. All right, last thing here. Michigan did release its spring roster. Really, the only things that you could grab out of it were number changes. The heights and weights don't matter. It's the same thing listed as it was last year. You've got we now know who officially the early enrollees are, so I can sit there and tell you that no Jasper Parker and Jacob Washington from Archbishop Shaw. No, neither of them early enrolled. Donovan Johnson, who was not on hand for the bowl game and bowl prep, he is part of the team. So is Jordan Young. He's the only one of those safety trios. And then you got the number changes. TJ Guy going from 42 to 4. He said that Sharon Moore approached him about that, and it's considered an honor to be a single-digit edge rusher. So that's cool. That's pretty cool. Rayshon Benny switched from 26 to 55. That was his number in high school. Not surprised that once Mason Graham was gone that he took it. Kind of surprising because he came before Mason Graham. Who was 55 before that? I don't really remember. So a couple number changes. Nothing like really crazy. And then obviously Marion Walker doesn't have a number, so we'll see. But anyway, that's going to do it for us today. And I don't really feel like there's a heck of a lot more. So we will be back tomorrow, and we've got Pro Day on Friday. So again, much like today, we'll be a little bit later. Like I like to get these out around 5 on audio and 6:30 on video. Doesn't always work out that way. Especially when having to travel to Ann Arbor and do that round trip, get the writing done, all of that stuff. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.